the ultimate is an organization that can provide, 24/7 customer support. So even if you're a small organization, you can still have digital capabilities, but it's all about knowing, what do your customers want? How do they want to engage? What is it that they want to do? When do they want to do it? It's about understanding who your customers are.
It's time for CX education. Welcome to the podcast for enterprise CX professionals, the people who want to connect with customers on their own terms, before, during, and after a purchase is made. In each episode, you'll learn how to create experiences your customers love. Ready? Here we go.
Welcome to a new episode of the CX Education Podcast, a podcast brought to you by Cinch, the Customer Communications Cloud. I'm your host, Gwen Lafage, and today my guest is Shameem Smillie. She's a CCaaS consultant specialized in digital and customer experience transformation. She was previously Director of Product Enablement at Voice at LivePerson, as well as a Director of Global Contact Center Solution at Mintel. Fair to say, a true expert in customer experience, CCaaS, contact center technology and operations, who have partnered with many different organizations to deliver successful digital transformation projects. Shameem is also an advocate and activist for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a champion for women in tech. She was the founding member of Women in CX. So welcome, Shameem, and very glad to have you on a podcast today.
Thanks, Gwen, and thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be here today.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a fun discussion. Let's start a little bit with your background helping women in our industry. I think I'm quite interested with that, and we can start a little bit about that before we get into the deep of the conversation on contact centers and technology solutions. So you present yourself as an advocate and also an activist. So tell me a little bit more about that.
I think it's got a lot to do with the bumpy journey I've had throughout my career. It's not been that bumpy, by the way, I would say, in the last couple of years. But my personal mission is to make sure that, the women coming up behind us don't have to have the same struggles or, levels of difficulties that perhaps we did to get to where we are today. And I just like, things to be a little bit smoother, a little bit easier, to encourage more women to join us in the industry. So that's it.
Yeah, I love this. I think that's such an important mission, right? Like we know that in technology industry overall, there's still like a need for pushing for more women in leadership position, like easier career paths, I guess, for women, all of that. So I think it's always great to meet a woman that is helping other women, right? Like, and how we could stick together and move the needle.
Yeah, there's a huge, still, in 2023, there's a huge gender imbalance in the tech industry. And even when you think about customer experience, I was looking up some stats this morning because I knew obviously we were going to have this conversation. And according to the National Center for Women and Informational Technology, as well as the Office of National Statistics, women represent over 70% of the workforce in customer experience. But when you move up and start to look at leadership positions, they're less than 30%. And I want to be part of the solution to make that number more favorable and make it more equitable for both, men and women in all the different industries that represent women in tech or technology and customer experience.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's definitely a need. And I love that there is like now this organization, right? Like Women in CX that is really like pushing for it and So I think that's, what is the kind of like concrete activities that you do in the Women in CX organization? I mean, you or the organization as a whole, like how is the organization moving the needle, you would say?
I would say, well, first of all, it's a community, and we encourage all women from, regardless of where you live on the planet, to come and join our community. So currently there's there's 7,000 plus women represented from 50 plus, probably more now, countries across the globe, from all different disciplines, within the customer experience, I would say, areas. I represent women in tech, and I'm pleased to say there's a lot more of us now as well joining the community. And what we do is champion, support each other, shine the light on each other. If we spot an opportunity, make it known to each other, not just inside the community, but outside the community as well. And Claire Muscat, the CEO and founder, she organizes networking classes, master classes, and a lot of the members as well, they also run different areas, depending on what their subject matter is in particular. There'll be master classes and areas that you can grow your career, develop a particular discipline. And I've seen women being promoted, get huge pay rises, get recognition as well for the work that they're doing. And I think, positivity spread, is contagious, just like negativity is really, but more so. And I'm seeing growth in all different areas of women that are joining, from last year to this year. And everybody within the community is going from strength to strength. And the key thing is that, it's because we're all bringing everybody with us on the journey, leave nobody behind, because there's room for everybody. There's room for everybody. And there's room for a lot more to join us as well.
That's amazing. And that's exactly it, right? Stronger together. So I'll definitely encourage all of our women listeners, I guess, to check it out. So it's called Women in CX, and it's a strong organization where all the women in the space can rally together and help each other grow. So yeah, thanks for that. So let's move on and maybe talk a little bit more about customer service and the core of your expertise. And so customer service is really in a constant state of evolution, right? There's, and we know with the pandemic, we've seen a lot of things that have happened. There's businesses are always looking for new ways to serve the customers, to be where the customers are. And technology overall plays quite a big role, right, in this kind of digital transformation. How would you describe the state of the customer service today?
Customer service today, I want to say that it's messy, it's inconsistent, and very, very problematic. But I think you'll agree, Gwen, we've been saying this for, a number of years now. I think what the pandemic did was hyper accelerate the movement, I guess. And what it did was make businesses recognize the need to take on new technologies to be able to offer customers the choice in the media that they want to interact with. And we've seen a lot of advancement, especially, with the likes of digital channels for communication. Companies are expanding their customer service offerings beyond traditional phone and email. You can't go anywhere these days without reading about chatbots, social media. The proliferation of social media has gone through the roof. And what these channels do is, they're supposed to allow customers to interact with companies in a way that's convenient and accessible. And what that should then do is lead to increased satisfaction, increased loyalty. The customer, will stay with that business. And I think that's the promise for the most part of a lot of organizations. But what I see time and time again is what often happens is implementing, I don't know, like a chatbot, sometimes creates other problems in other areas of the business. I wrote an article actually for Wix, for Women in Customer Experience, about the fact that still, 70% of digital transformation projects fail. And that's for a lot of reasons that I'm sure we're gonna discuss later in our conversations.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I looked at that article obviously when I was preparing for this discussion, and I guess one really good point that you bring, right, is it's the importance of multi-channel and omnichannel, right? That has been a huge transformation, I guess, for businesses and the way we communicate, not just with businesses, but in general, right? We are truly in a multi-channel, omni-channel world, and we communicate with our friends and family and everybody we know on several channels, right? Sometimes we don't even know where was the last message, right? I don't know if that happened to you, but it's I know I've talked to someone. I don't know if it was an email, a WhatsApp, or was it on Slack, or what was it, right? But I think that shows one of the big transformation that companies have to go through is embracing this kind of omni-channel world. And I guess that's a very difficult thing to do, right? For companies. Yeah. So where do you see that many companies fail into implementing or going through this digital transformation for the customer service or within the contact center?
Well, I think first of all that, and I keep saying this, they need to focus on the basics. So you were just talking about, multi-channel, omni-channel, the fact that consumers, we're all using that at home. And if we're using it at home, we should be able to interact, with a business on the same vein, asynchronous messaging. But a lot of organizations fail from the get-go in terms of, just basic stuff like show me you know me, instead of making me jump through these hoops, answering a million questions only to get through and then have to answer the same millions of questions all over and all over again. And all that does is create friction. And I think where customers or where brands, businesses should be looking at is looking at, the bottom line and looking at how can they optimize, streamline, and remove friction from that customer experience. That should be the very first thing. I also want to add that, voice, remains very, very important to a customer. And if you are going to implement and push, digital channels, there needs to be a mechanism in place so that if something goes wrong, if the customer is not getting their inquiry, their question, their transaction, if something goes wrong and the customer wants to escalate, they should be able to pivot to a voice interaction, which is where omnichannel comes in, really, true omnichannel. And I would say 8 out of 10 times, there's no mechanism there to do it because a lot of organizations are deflecting to messaging, deflecting to something else to prevent customers from calling in. And that's causing, huge problems, both for the business, for the employees, as well as for the customer that's trying to contact them in the first place.
Yeah. Would you say it's because, like you said, they're trying to prevent the voice interaction because they're trying to automate probably a bit more and being able to kind of manage or get more inbound requests or treat more customer requests by using technology and chatbot and messaging. But is the problem not so much that they're trying to do that they are not doing that well? Because I think as a customer, right? Now, I think when I have an issue, if I can have it solved through a chatbot, and talking to potentially a real contact agent, but through a chatbot, I'd rather do that than pick up the phone. But most of the time, if that's not well done, then yeah, I'll pick up the phone, right? If I don't get the answer I have. So it's maybe not the technology is not really the problem, right? It's more like how we use the technology to solve some of these issues.
Yeah. Well, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Customers will, I will always gravitate to using, some form of digital means to contact the business. But if it goes wrong, and I got, my patience levels are super low, as are most consumers these days. If it goes wrong, the first thing I want to do is look at the next quicker step. I don't want to keep going around that, crazy cycle of error. I just want to, my first error, I'm like, right, I'm done. I want to get to my answer quickly. And I think the problem is that if a customer has a bad experience, they don't have trust. And when they don't have trust, they'll revert back to what they know will essentially work, which is picking up the phone.
Right. Yeah. So I guess it's a difficult one for companies because, like you said, it comes down to really understanding who the people are and finding, I guess, fastest way to resolve issues. It's benefit for everyone, right? Company are also trying to solve problems fast as possible.
And I think in the beginning, when businesses and organizations are looking at deploying these types of projects, they have good intentions. So, they want to do it because, they want to cut costs, operational costs, as well as probably people costs and the overall processing time. And they want to make things simpler. So they're trying to optimize, they're trying to streamline, but along the way, somehow they butcher things and they're not optimizing, or they're making things a little bit more complicated, or, what they think they're deploying or how they think it works isn't the reality. And when those dots are not joined up, that's what causes the mess and causes the friction for both sides then of the journey.
So what do you see is going wrong? It's usually they think about they're getting, I guess, technology to try to solve the problem without maybe thinking through it as much as they should, or because I guess we all know that technology is a great enabler to solving some of those problems, but technology just by itself is never really going to solve the problem if you don't know what you're trying to solve, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? If it's just to stop customers from calling in, then that on its own isn't enough. There has to be other meaningful problems that you're trying to solve, both, operational as well as things that affect the bottom line. Once you're clear on the problem that you're trying to solve, then it's how do you go about doing it? Identifying the right user cases. Are these user cases valid? Are they viable? And does it make sense? Making sure that you understand things like the complexity of each touch point in that customer journey, the complexity of the implementation, making sure that you're focused on the technology, which is good, but also massively focused on the user experience of the customer that's coming in, as well as the employees that are using it at the other end. And obviously anything that can be automated should be automated, because if you've got something that's a repeatable process and it's being repeated lots and lots of times, then that makes sense that is automated. But when you're automating something, it needs to be automated well. And then making sure then that you're looking at maintenance improvements and looking at that continuous evolution, to look at, looking at your data, your insights, looking at what's working, what's not working so well, making sure that you're enhancing that as you're going along over and over again, never ever sitting still or standing still, and then taking it up to the next level in terms of efficiencies over and over again, so that it's benefiting everybody that it's supposed to benefit. And then remembering, your why did you start doing this in the beginning, and making sure that the outcome matches the intention.
Would you say that the main reason people or companies are looking into this is often to, like you say, cut costs and bring more automation, which is a really valid reason, right? But in the process, do they really also want to truly improve customer experience? Do they look at it from a pure customer experience lens, or is it an internal lens of we want to cut costs, and that's maybe where there's a little bit of a discrepancy?
Well, I think that all depends. I don't think there's a yes or no answer to that. I'd like to think that customer experience comes into the equation, and of course it does in a lot of areas, but fundamentally businesses are there to make a profit. So there has to be some correlation to finances, whether that be soft benefits as well as hard benefits. So, how much money are we saving by implementing this technology, by providing this service for the customer? Is there a return on investment? If there is, there should be. When do we start seeing that? How long is it going to take? But I think it's a combination, and it's all dependent on the individual project. I don't think you can just blanket. It's always about one thing more than the other, but finances heavily play into this for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where we see some of the benefits of the technology, right? Of course, it helps with some of the automation and cutting costs. But do you feel that there is, would you say that in recent year, and I guess since the pandemic, there's been a struggle from company to manage their contact centers, and that this is something that they maybe don't value as much as they should? Or what's your perception on that?
I think they do. I think they definitely value their customers. I think they value their people. In the pandemic, everybody went to, majority, sorry, not everybody, went to kind of a semblance of working from home, whether it was fully working from home or a hybrid model, so we know it can be done in terms of remote working or hybrid working. And the walls of the business, for the most part, didn't fall down. Customers were still able to engage and get what they needed, as well as, the employees. And I think a lot of those solutions that were implemented back in 2020, 2021, I would say it was done quickly, not always properly. And I think, we're past the time now where people should be circling back and making those solutions right. And what I mean by that is that, I don't know about you, I'm still hearing and seeing companies say that the problems we're experiencing are still hangovers from COVID. And I'm just like, come on, guys, it's way past that. You should have cleaned up your operation by now. Technology is advancing, nothing stands still, does it, in our industry? And I think the speed and the evolution of technology is going at a rate, and businesses, a lot of them are struggling to catch up. And a lot of that reason is because they're still having to manage legacy environments, legacy solutions. And what they want to do is maintain their legacy infrastructure, their legacy applications and systems by integrating them to what's the bright, shiny and new. And sometimes it just doesn't work as well as they would like it to work. And that's causing, problems or ripple effects really to other parts of the business.
What would you say then are the right steps for like company to take when they're like thinking about improving their customer service operations and they want to kind of, digitalize more of their ways of working? Like, I don't know if there is like a one framework or like a step by step on like how we could help company that want to get started.
It's similar to what I said earlier, identify the problems and to identify the business problem, the opportunity, as well as what is this going to address internally for the business, as well as for the customer. It's all about the different use cases as well, making sure that you've got data, what is the data telling you at the beginning and what data is this going to yield as you go through the journey. You should be listening to the data, but also you should be listening to all the different key stakeholders across the organization, because they've got first-hand knowledge. Making sure as well that you've got the right technology with the right vendor. That's critical, I think, because one size doesn't fit all. I'm sure the vendor will say it does, but it doesn't. And making sure that there's a good fit as well, technology-wise, cultural-wise, and making sure the values are aligned. And then, if it's a huge, massive project that's going to impact lots of departments, maybe start off with one department, try it, test it, see how it goes, and then keep ideating on that until it's the best it can be before rolling it out to the rest of the organization. And then deploy it, monitoring it, but also, making sure that you've got your analytics, your insights to make sure that you can circle back and again, look at improvements, because nothing should stand still ever.
Yeah, for sure. What do we say is the thing that the company struggle the most with? Is it the pace of technology, or is what is some of the biggest struggle that they come across when they're trying to go through this digital transformation?
Well, I don't think there's just one thing, to be honest, not one thing. I think it's maybe trying to boil the ocean, let's say, trying to fix everything instead of breaking it down into bite-sized chunks, because nothing that they're trying to do is insurmountable. It's all, it can be done. I know the technology can achieve, within reason, what most of the organizations wanted to achieve. But I think what happens is somehow during the implementation of the project, some things, it becomes apparent that some things are more difficult than maybe what they thought. Things are going to take longer than what they thought, and people are rushing towards a date. And that's why it's about making sure that you've got a good plan that you can execute and then, roll out, and it's going to land the way that you expect it to. So in terms of what's more difficult, it's difficult to say. If a business has done its homework, done its housekeeping, cleaned up their data, got all their information in the right place, they'll be in good shape. I just think sometimes things are done too fast, and in doing so, corners are inevitably cut, and it causes pain.
Right. What would you say good look like, right? Do you have a example of what the right setup of a company that have succeed to transform its contact center in a modern way? I guess we've established this multi-channel, but I guess that's not just that, right? What does it look like?
Well, I think the ultimate is an organization that can provide, 24/7 customer support. Well, Amazon is the poster child, the biggest e-commerce platform on the planet. But I get, they've got the resources and the finances to back that up. But I think it's about understanding who your customers are. So even if you're a small organization, you can still have digital capabilities, but it's all about knowing, what do your customers want? How do they want to engage? What is it that they want to do? When do they want to do it? If you're a bank, let's say a building society, and your demographic is of an age where their preference is they always want to phone in, you should be talking to them. If you want to implement, a move to digital, take them on the journey with you so that they embrace it. And there's no point rolling something out where nobody will use it. then that's not going to be a good thing for the business or for them. But I think when you can bring as many people on the journey as well, you're maximizing the successful outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And I think that's the thing. It's like there's probably not one picture of what success looks like or what a perfect contact center looks like, because it really depends of the industry and who your customers are, right? Like there's different variation of what they want. And of course, like if you, I don't know, cater to an older generation versus like millennials or like, they're not even young anymore. But I guess like then maybe you will do things in a different ways. I guess like I was thinking that probably my mom will not really want to interact with a chatbot. She will pick up the phone straight away, right? Like,
well, I'm seeing
things like that.
I keep saying, I'm seeing a lot of people in their 70s, even in their 80s, engaging on digital channels because it's what they're using at home. And I think that, again, is one of the positives of the pandemic. Like when nobody could see each other, you couldn't travel, to go and see your loved ones. I mean, I was chatting to my mother who was in her 80s on WhatsApp, as an example. And I think, because there was a compelling event that was created that was benefiting my mother in that instance and other people, they used technology. And I think that has helped to expedite how much, the explosion of conversational AI, ChatGPT, voice bots and the likes, because of what happened, during those 2 years when we couldn't just go and rock up and see whoever we wanted to, whenever we wanted to. We had to rely on this.
Yep, that's very true. Like, it's a good transition, I guess, to talk a bit more about conversational AI. And like, how would you explain what it is and what are the kind of benefits for the company? Because I think there's a lot of misconception, and it's like, it feels like a big word, like conversation AI, right? Like, but how would you explain it?
Okay, so I'll go back to what it was before, to what we were all using. So for me, conversational AI is the evolution of your basic chatbots. So when you go on a website and you would chat to a bot, we probably didn't even call them bots back then, but that's what they were in the background. And it would just be very, very computerized. It was clearly obvious that you were speaking or interacting with a bot. The language was very rudimental, and it was, heavily scripted to a point where, there was no room for flexibility. And conversational AI is I guess, the iteration after that. So it's a type of artificial intelligence that allows machines to understand and respond to human language. It also uses natural language processing, machine learning, and there's loads of other technologies in the background to create things like intelligent IVAs, intelligent virtual assistants, chatbots, interactive. When you're ringing up a company, you can speak, tell them all about your problem. It will understand your problem, be able to direct you to where you want to go to, and hopefully even, solve the problem while you're live and explaining it. It can also, it's heavily used right now in customer service, e-commerce, healthcare, finance, and it's used to provide, hopefully, personalized support. It should improve user experience, and you can use it for, I call it automation on steroids, scheduling appointments, making reservations, answering common questions. And what that does then hopefully is frees up human agents to focus on the more complex issues and the problems and the services that business provides that needs, more human intelligence, emotional intelligence, let's say.
Yeah, perfect definition. I think it shows some of the great benefits for companies, right? Like, it's like if it's done right, I guess, and if it's implemented in the right way. Because I think people get frustrated when they keep asking questions and they don't get the answer they want.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so I think that then they say like, I don't want to talk to like a bot. But I think when you have the experience of like when it's done right, like you get actually the right answers to your question without having to talk to someone. It's a huge benefit to everybody, right? Like, how do company you think can get started with conversational AI, and like what's within the contact center or like a chatbot on their website, or like what's some of the steps they can take?
All of the above. It's exactly the same as, I say exactly the same. There's a lot of synergy between how you would implement conversational AI as you would, going through, implementing digital/customer experience transformation project. You still need to identify the problems. Look at the processes within the system, the services that you're providing. What problems can you solve? Can they be solved by automation? Identify, again, it's identifying the business case that directly correlates to how conversational AI can address them, and always bringing it back to improving customer service, reducing costs, hopefully increasing sales. Once you've identified the user case as well as the problem, and then you need to come up with the different use cases for your chatbots. Understand, are your chatbots going to be virtual assistants for specific functions, so customer service, sales, or are they going to be voice enabled so that people can interact with them, in a human conversational manner? But making sure as well that you've got data. I mean, if data has never been more important than it has for conversational AI, because conversational AI requires lots and lots of high quality data, because it needs to learn and it needs to be able to, understand what's gone on before. Companies should be assessing, where their data exists, making sure that it's all streamlined and that it's relevant, rubbish in, rubbish out, that it's structured in a proper way and is properly labeled. And again, I want to say, if you're implementing conversational AI, choose the right technology and choose the right vendor. Because
I can only agree with that, right? Like,
yeah,
I think one thing that I see being quite important as well, like as from a user perspective, right, is like the ability to maybe start engaging with like a chatbot that will bring me some automated answers, but the ability to then move to a conversation with an agent through the chat before I maybe go to voice. So I also see kind of like the evolution, depending on some problem can be solved just by the automation or like by AI. Some you actually need a human being behind, but the ability to kind of smoothly go into that without having to answer again all the same questions for like, who are you? Like, what's your problem? Like, I've just told it to the chatbot, so you should be able to know, right?
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I can see sometimes that is a challenge. And I guess it comes to like you say, the right technology and the right vendors and having that ability to do that. Like, what do you see as some of the big trends, or like what's the future of like conversational AI? And I guess we've heard, are we hearing a lot right now about ChatGPT, right? Like it's all we can see around the internet, and like, is it taking our job? And especially within customer service and contact center, will ChatGPT or conversational AI replace like the human aspect of it?
Yeah. So where should we start? I guess the first place to start is probably in terms of is responsible AI, because there are a lot of concerns about bias and ethics in AI, especially for women. And responsible AI is becoming a top agenda item as well for a lot of organizations, which I'm really pleased about, because, as ChatGPT evolves, as conversational AI evolves, this does involve implementing and designing AI systems that have to be transparent, fair, and accountable, with hopefully no biases, and making sure that the ethics are on point. But in terms of, will it take jobs away from humans? I think that AI, ChatGPT, has the potential to automate so many tasks that humans don't even want to be doing. I mean, who wants to be doing the same mundane task 100 times a day? And, while still be automating some jobs, I think new jobs are going to be created. New jobs, jobs that we don't even know about are going to start popping up in the next couple of months, because of the workload that's taken, not taken away from us, but helping us with. But, for the here and now, we should be using it to, use for routine customer service inquiries. Again, just focus so that human beings can focus on the complex. I know, I was reading an article the other day about AI that's being used to help diagnose and treat patients. But, we still need doctors and nurses. It just means that they get more time to spend on patient care, which is critical. It's still, super, super important. And I think, there's still the element of making sure that companies And the people that create policies recognize the potential impact that AI has on workforces. And again, it's about bringing everybody on the journey. When you bring everybody on the journey with you, it reduces fear, takes away, the unknown. And it's about making sure that whilst one thing's taken care of, you've still got all the rest of it to be taken care of. It's not going to be a humanless organization. We're so far away from that. So far away from
for sure. And I guess it in a way can make the role of people working in contact center more interesting and more valued, rather than getting outsourced to some, I guess, low paid workers, which is the case for certain companies, right? And maybe it will shift some of that balance. Or do you see that happening in some of the companies you work with? This, I think we touched on this in some of our pre-discussion on how people outsource or not outsource, or where the contact center is located and the type of people that work there.
Yeah. For me, given the technology that's available and the technology that's being deployed in businesses, the people that are using it, they need to have certain skills. They need high levels of training. It's not a menial job. It's a really, really, really good job that needs really good skills. And, to me, they should get paid appropriately. But as well as I do, there's a huge stigma still associated around contact centers, being an agent. And I think the level of capability of an agent is growing. It's growing all the time. So should the benefits associated with that. We're seeing organizations we spoke before that used to employ people offshore, bringing them back onshore, because that's what customers are demanding. And, people should be getting paid what they should, a fair wage for doing what is a skilled job, using, the best of technology and all that comes with it. So why not?
Yep. Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's maybe what the conclusion is of the success of a really good contact center, or how you offer the best possible customer service. It's a mix of a really good technology and expertise on the human side, right? And the combination of two make for great customer service.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was a couple of years ago. I was doing some consultancy with a business in London, and honestly, their agents were earning six-figure salaries because they were earning commission on top of what they were doing, and it was a fun place to be. It was a good place to be. The culture was good, every box. It was wonderful to experience that side of a contact center where, everybody is, it's a career and it's a vocation and everybody is winning. The business is winning, the people that are working there are winning for lots and lots of different reasons. And it's not just about the financials. But my point is just, there are businesses out there that have contact centers that have meaningful career paths, and it's there for the taking for people to join.
Perfect. I think that's a great conclusion. Anything you would like to add that we haven't touched upon in this discussion, or final word?
No, I was going to talk about Cinch. I really wanted to talk about it because because I just think more people should know about. I just think you've educated me, and I've been looking at your brand, and it's what you do is really good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this podcast, this interview, but it's just so funny because I was talking to so many of my people in my network, and they were getting it mixed up because I'm obviously based in the UK. So anyway, I just want to do a brand shout out for Cinch with a C.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, yeah, we talked about that in a pre-discussion, right? Cinch with the C were a big kind of core provider brand in the UK, right? Which we get mixed up with Cinch with an S, which is the customer communication cloud with a CPaaS, a global CPaaS leader. So yeah, it's always quite interesting. Obviously, we do very different thing than Cinch in the UK. But yeah, that's the fun. The fun. No worries. It's the fun word for the end. I think one thing that I wanted to bring up, and I didn't bring out in your profile when I was presenting you, is I forgot to say that obviously you are a big Prince fan. And for everyone watching us on video, that should be part of your profile, right?
I know. And I realized today that I'm blended into my chair.
Exactly. Everything is purple, right? So
yeah,
perfect.
I'm obsessed. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Shameem, for the discussion. I think this was a really great chat, and I think it emphasized
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you're welcome. The value of thinking about the the contact center and the customer service at the high level as a strategic way to serve their clients, right? Like, which I think we're going to see more of with the technology being there and companies starting to implement it in a better way. Thank you so much. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch?
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Sounds good. Same for me. You can follow us on LinkedIn, reach out on LinkedIn, and of course, follow Cinch on our website and our LinkedIn channels as well. So thank you again for the discussion, and bye.
That's it for this episode of CX Education. Thanks for joining us. This show is brought to you by Cinch, the technology company that helps you create mobile experiences your customers love. Did you enjoy the episode? Then make sure to subscribe to CX Education wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit cinch.com/podcasts to get instant access to all the latest episodes.